Welcome to episode 8 of This Spiritual Fix. Today we're going to be talking about primary interests in Neurolinguistic programming, or NLP, and how you can use it to better understand people, to have better conversations with people, and how to really just enjoy the differences that we all have.
Hypnosis, mindfulness, meditation, past life regression, RTT, spirituality.
This Spiritual Fix. Two mystical mamas hacking the self-help game.
With Anna Stromquist and Christina Wiltsey.
Okay, so today before we get into the episode, we want you, if you can, to do an exercise. We are going to be talking about the different ways that people sort information, and before you learn about the different types, we want you to take the test. So stop the podcast if you can, especially if you're driving, maybe pull over to the side of the road or find a time when you can, and record yourself describing your morning. So when you got up to whenever you did that, we want you to do that. Go ahead and record it. Try not to just say it out loud and then remember it later, because it will be relevant later. So do us a favor and you won't regret it. Thanks.
Hello, Christina.
Hello, Anna. How are you?
I'm great today. How are you?
I am doing well. Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I think this week has been a good week. It's just like another week, but it's good. I'm in the process of moving to a farm.
I know.
I'm moving outside of Atlanta.
Thank God I worked on my abandonment wound, because I might otherwise have some very strong feelings about this.
I'm glad you did too. Yeah, I mean, I'm only moving about an hour and a half outside of Atlanta, though. I know that like an hour and a half can be like the same as like 8 hours sometimes, but
Yeah. How many acres is the?
60 acres.
Oh my gosh. And it has a pond and a pool.
Yeah, it has like a 4-acre lake, pond, whatever you want to call it.
A lake. Yeah.
And then it's just like, it's like one of those places when we went to it, like Luke and I are so funny because when we go, we've like bought so many freaking houses in the last couple of years. Not bought.
Because you flip.
Well, kind of. We've moved. I'm going to take
You've
this
moved
back.
a lot.
I'm not that, I know I've already established myself as a pretentious bitch, but like we kind of went from living off grid, building our own house, no power, no running water.
And when she says building her own house, she means like she put in the plumbing with her bare hands. Her husband poured the cement into the foundation. Like they did it all.
I tiled my bathroom when I was 7 months pregnant. Yeah.
You literally, it's not like I hired contractors and built a house. It's like I got my hands dirty.
Oh yeah. No, we designed it and everything. So I went from that and food stamps, right, to getting a legit, well, I always had legit jobs. I'm not going to say it like that. But getting like a professional job,
career type job
and busting my ass, and then making it so that like we've moved a couple of places and we've done, Atlanta's housing market is like crazy. Especially we had a mid-century and it was really popular, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, whenever we find a house that is ours, like we both know it immediately. And it's the most amazing thing because it's like we're totally aligned on it, right? Even with the house that we have now, I was like, oh yeah, no, I can totally be aligned with it. But Luke had done all the work to do the house that we have now. But the farm, it was like we were both there and it was like, there's no question. Like we just absolutely love this place. It's just like this magical paradise. And I'm so excited to make it this kind of co-created world. Co-creation, for those of you who don't know, is the idea that nature and nature spirits are kind of in and around everything that we do on Earth, and most of the time we completely ignore them. But they actually know how to keep things in balance, and they know how to keep things healthy, and they know how to keep everything in a place that's very good.
That's why it feels so good to go on a hike, right? And go in nature.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine if we could bring the feeling that we have in the woods inside. And the only reason that we don't is because we're just not aware that it is a practice that you can do. So my theory, my prediction is that just how organic is kind of become mainstream. It's still not mainstream for a lot of people, unfortunately, but like local, organic, and like all these different kind of ways of growing. Okay, yeah, you can get organic. Like every grocery store has organic stuff. Then there's like biodynamic, and there's kind of all these really like fringe types of farming. Biodynamic is something that Rudolf Steiner who is just this like total genius philosopher and polymath, just kind of like could talk about anything because he could just channel ways of doing anything. He was the originator of the Waldorf schools curriculum and all that kind of stuff. Steiner came up with biodynamics, which is all about how you use the energies of the earth to improve the soil and improve the microbiome, which is like all about like how you actually make good soil, which makes good food. Co-creation is my prediction that in maybe like 10 or 20 years,
Probably 50.
probably 50, there has to be major movements in which people are actually creating food that has been co-created actively. So a human is actually trying to communicate with nature.
You know, I had an ex-boyfriend who did this, and it was amazing. When he would water his plants, he would always water his plants by hand. So he would hold a bucket of water and sprinkle the plants with his own hand. And he said, it's because the cells on his hand, the DNA in his hand would then drip into the water, and then the plants would know him. And because he had read this book about a woman who communed with the nature. And I started doing it too. When I did my garden, when I did my vegetable garden, it says suck on the seeds before you plant them, because what you're doing is you're telling the seedling, the seed, like, here's some of my DNA. Now make the fruit or vegetable that corresponds to the needs that I need. Which makes sense. Like if you're breastfeeding a baby, and there's plenty of science to prove this, that the nipple will read the bacteria in the baby's mouth, and it can know what kind of antibodies the baby needs, and it will know like what kind of milk to make and how old. Like if you nurse a baby on the left that's 1 year old and you nurse a baby on the right that's a newborn, the milk is totally different. They like can analyze it, and the milk on the right side is going to be perfectly formulated for a newborn, and the milk on the left. It's just like so fascinating. So the idea is like nature is just as smart. So if you suck on a seed before you plant it, you're in essence like the baby giving the saliva to the nipple, and you're saying, this is what I need. This is who I am. Like, hello, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So when we built our little vegetable garden, me and the kids, we were sucking on the seeds before we were spitting them into the little holes, because we're like, okay, make us the cucumbers that are the best for our bodies.
No, that's so amazing, and that's actually one of the things that you do.
Is that co-creation?
Yeah. No,
okay.
I mean that's definitely a level of it. Those books are the Anastasia series.
Yes, that's what he told me. So.
Yeah. One of the things that's great is that way in herbalism, and there's a theory. There's actually like a direct theory that talks about how the herb grows in your garden that you need. Like the weeds that show up in your garden are the ones that you need. Of course,
that makes sense.
A lot of people who live in the suburbs or in the cities don't necessarily have a chance for weeds to show up, but
with weed killer, right? But
yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's the same idea that like you're interacting with your environment, and the nature spirits know that you're there, and so they're trying to help you to be balanced, because all nature spirits care about ultimately is balance. And if there are people who are imbalanced in their environment, then that is stressful to them. Like it's not stressful in a human way, but yeah.
All right.
Cool. What are we talking about today, Anna?
So today we're going to talk about NLP,
which is Neurolinguistic programming, right?
And my husband is a great NLP student. He studied it for like 10 years. So everything I know about it comes from my husband. And his teacher was, who taught him?
That's a really
Was
good
it Marshall
question.
Thurber?
It could have been Marshall. It could have been the CIA. NLP is like one of those things that everyone's like, it's like the mind control scene.
Yeah, like I think there was a movie like Goats.
Men Who See Goats.
I think that's an
Men
aspect.
Who Stare at Goats.
I think it's like there's a whole aspect of it. Tony Robbins uses it. So basically, the idea is that there are 2 million bits of information coming into the brain per second at any given moment, but the mind can only process 7 plus or minus, so 5 to 9 chunks of information per second. So basically, we're inundated with all this information, but our brains can't handle it. So what does it do? It filters everything into folders, basically, and it makes this, it just kind of like turns the universe into a more simplified version that we can understand. Like we could all agree, like if it's just sensory overload, your brain is so smart, it's going to be like, no, let's just filter it all down. So we're going to talk today about the way people, there's a lot of parts of NLP, but the one we're going to talk about today is the way people sort information filter information. So basically there are these different types. So you have people sorters, place sorters, information sorters, thing sorters, activity sorters. So the way that you filter information in is through people, place, information, activity, or thing. So we're going to give an example right now. I asked my cousin to tell me about her day. So this is her.
My
not sure why I'm doing this, but today I went on a 6-mile walk, came back, did some laundry, and now I'm enjoying the sunset. Weirdo, love you.
So if you listen to that audio, you can hear that she talks about activities, what she did, and there's a flow. I did this, and then I did that, and I did this, and I'm doing, and even the sunset, it's about enjoying the sunset. There is a verb in there. So she's totally an activity sorter. So she filters the life around her like through the lens of activity.
Yeah. And a good example of activities is if you're the type of person who goes on vacation and you don't feel like you're actually on vacation until you have things to do on vacation, then you may be an activity sorter.
And if you're the kind of person, which I am guilty of because I'm an activity sorter, who filters your friend group based on the activities you can do with them.
I remember you telling me that originally.
Like, I have my friends that I walk with. I have my friends that I drink with. I have my friends that I cook with. And I have my friends that I clean with. And I have my friends that I filter my friends in my mind, like, and people, what do we do together? And like, what does my family do together? We play games. We go on hikes. We do things together. My family's like big activity sorters.
Yeah.
So we're going to listen now to Chris's husband. We asked him how to tell us about his day, and this is the answer we got.
Describe your morning when you got up.
Yeah, I laid in bed for a long time thinking about various ideas, and then I finally got up. I've been laying there for a while. It was really early when I woke up, and I came out in the dark.
So if you listen to him, it might be hard to understand because he does also talk about activity, but he is an information sorter. Mm-hmm. It's all about the information sorter and the information. It's all about the details, the facts, things like that.
The why. It has information sorters has a lot to do with why. It's sometimes he's also a 5 in the Enneagram, which doesn't help because he'll also, I feel like they contribute to stuff, and I won't get into that. But for a long time, we couldn't tell what Luke was. We thought at first he was a people sorter. And I think at first, because he was just so considerate with other people, and then we thought that he was a place sorter. Eric, when like your husband, when he saw him, was like, "You must be a place sorter because like everything has its place when he cooks." But I think it was only recently that we were like, "Oh no, he's information," because it just like flows. Like it just there's no chunking of anything.
Right. Thing sorters are very chunky. Mm-hmm. So to give a quick description of each, and then I'll go into the strengths and weaknesses of each. People sort information in 5 different ways. So you have the people sorters. So they're going to see the lens through the people. You ask them about their day. They're going to talk about who they spent the time, who they were with. It's all about the people, right? Place sorters, they're all about the place, but it's not just geographical location. It's also about weather. It's all about organization. Like everything has its right place. It's about structure, schedules, weather, things like that. Time.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. I have a patient who is a place sorter. She, in her small 1-bedroom apartment, has like 2 grandfather clocks and 2 additional clocks on the wall. She has 4 clocks just in that living area. Yeah. Place sorter all the way. You have information sorters, and they are about the facts and the why. You have thing sorters, and they're about the things, and they chunk, like people are things. Activities even are things, and it's very chunky and almost like dead when they talk about things, because things are just things, they're not alive. And then you have the activity sorters, and they're all about the activity, the dynamic, the functionality, the doing. So the reason why this is a really important tool to know how people sort information, it's not just for self-reflection, it's also about connecting with others and forgiving others. When you understand another person's patterns, it's a lot easier to connect with them on their level and also forgive them. And a great example is the 5 languages of love. You've got touch, gifts, verbal, etc. Like if you're giving gifts to someone whose language of love is verbal, your efforts are pointless. Like save your $100 gift, just give them some compliments. That's what they're going to want, you know? So when you understand people's types of sorting, you can save a lot of time being effective in your communication with them by meeting them on their level. So it's really important. It's also great for forgiveness because when you understand, you can easily forgive. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go into that in a minute. So I'm going to talk now about the strengths and kind of weaknesses of each of these patterns. And just to reiterate, none of these patterns is better than the other. Like we can't say it's better to be a people sorter than a information sorter. Like there is no better pattern there, but there is stuck and unstuck. So the more stuck you are in a pattern, if we had like a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being totally stuck in this pattern and 0 being totally flexible. My husband, having done NLP for years, is very, like the closest I know to a 0, right? He can very freely flow through all the different patterns. But like if you're stuck, then we can say, that's kind of bad, because you want to be, the more flexible you are, the more you can kind of maneuver in and out of life.
Yeah. And I also think that there are different professions that are better for different types of sorters.
Right. And there's different times of day. Like when you're with your children, be a people sorter, please. Like don't be a place sorter.
Yeah.
Don't need to have everything in the right place.
And like how Eric will run different patterns for his kids because he wants them to be as close to 0 as possible. So he's like, if your kid is a place sorter, then you just start talking about people and being like, hey, describe your teacher, right? Like, how is your teacher? Like trying to get them to be more flexible, because ultimately the more you grow up, if you're taught to be as close, unstuck as possible, then they're going to be able to adapt to any situation very easily.
Right. Like, so my son, for example, to give an example, my son was like big place sorter. His toys had to be in the right place. He really had to be puzzles. He would flip out if something was not in the right place. So what did my husband constantly do to him? Ask him questions about people, ask him to talk about the people at school, his friends, his teacher, like totally just kind of get him to like move more into the people pattern. And then my daughter, who is actually more of a people sorter, he would get her to talk more about place, like where do things go, just trying to be more flexible. So
yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go into the strengths and weaknesses. We've got the people sorters who are all about the people. Like hairdressers is a great profession, and most hairdressers are like people sorters.
Oh, yeah.
They love the gossip. They love the people. They're in it for the people.
Yeah.
Strengths of them are they love connections. They know everyone. They're really good at reading people. They're very loving. They're very interested. And when you're in their presence, you really feel like you exist. Like you really like feel that they show up for you. Like you feel like you are alive in their presence. You're not just a thing or an activity.
Yes. Pastors. Oh my God. You lead a church as a people sorter, and almost all the pastors that I've ever like directly known are almost all people sorters, because they have to be, because it's like,
oh yeah,
their flock, right?
My neighbor is a minister, and like every other word out of his mouth is a person, and he loves people.
Yeah.
One of the weaknesses of people sorters is they can often become wrapped up in other people or needing the approval of other people and kind of forgetting their own self.
Yeah, I have an example of this. I used to run a team that had project managers and a whole bunch of different creative professionals on it. And honestly, like being in a creative agency and being a people sorter is a really, really difficult thing to do, because of the fact, especially if you're a project manager, because project managers are really good as their activity sorters or information sorters or doing things that are like very based in activities. If you're a people sorter as a project manager, you are going to obsess over how your client feels about what you're sending them. It's like you literally, as a project manager, having done it for a number of years, I can say that one of the best things to do as a project manager is to be as equanimous as possible, to not necessarily get involved in drama, because you have to tell people what to do. You have to basically nicely boss people around, and you have to coordinate activities. And if you're concerned about how people feel about something, then you're literally not going to be as effective as you can be.
So a people sorter would do better like in HR than like managing projects.
Right. And not necessarily an administrative HR, but like the HR that takes care of people, right? Like that's, or like as a strategic HR person. There's so many professions for people sorters, but managing activities or information is not necessarily one of the best ideas, maybe.
Right. So then we have the place sorters, and they organize information based on place. So that includes time, like scheduling, where things are geographically, and also where they are in the order. Like there's a right and wrong place for things. So their strengths are they're very efficient, and their house is like always in order. There's a place for everything. They're good at organizing. They're good at being on time. They're good about knowing the weather. Like they're very efficient people. Place is very important to them. And they're the ones you want to ask, like, where's a good place to eat? Where's a good place to go on vacation? Like if you have a travel request or a food request, you want to ask place sorters, because they're going to know where the best places are. One of their weaknesses, though, is that they get hung up on structure. Like I think a pathological version of a place sorter would be OCD people who are like, they have to put things back in the right place. They have to flip the switch 7 times. They can't spend, they get caught up in being so efficient and so caught up in the time that they kind of forget to enjoy life, you know?
Yep. Or they're always cleaning their house or something along those lines.
Well, cleaning their house would be activity, but like being upset when something's not in the right place.
Oh, no. I mean, getting to the point where they feel comfortable in their house.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's what I mean by that when I mean cleaning their house. Because, Robbie, our teacher, is a place sorter, and I think she'd be okay with me telling you that. She runs a bunch of different patterns. She's not necessarily stuck in one, but her house is impeccable. But it's really interesting because what she does is that because she has all these different lineages and all this different information that she has like in her brain, when you see her describe her process of like how she goes to all these different places, they are places in front of her, like above her head. Like they basically are like above her head and up. And she's like, so I have my notebook here and it's like up to the left. And then I have this here and I have this here. And it's like, you can tell that even in her mind, everything has its place.
Right. Like I was talking to a place sorter once. This is a great example. And she was basically saying that this man loaned me money or she loaned this man money, whatever. I, as an activity sorter, would say, he loaned me money. What she said is, he took money out of his bank account and put it in my bank account. Like, it's a small like thing, but the way that she said it, it was like all about the place. The money moved from this place to that place. And that was how she filtered that information. It was just fascinating.
Yeah.
A lot of place sorters will move a lot. Like I know a place sorter who her hair is never out of place. Her eyelashes, everything is in the right place. Her clothes, her hair, everything's in the perfect place. She has moved, like in the 10 years I've known her, she's probably moved 8 times because she's always hunting for the perfect place.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that could be a strength or a weakness, however you want to see it. But like the place sorters, they got to find the right place. Like they don't feel settled unless they're in the right place. Another place sorter I know has moved cities. She's moved to like 5 different cities in the last 10 years looking for the perfect city. She's now in Austin and she loves it. And she's probably going to stay there, but it's like she was on this quest to find the right place. So place is very important to place sorters. Me, activity sorter, I don't care where I live as long as it's not too cold, because being too cold outside inhibits my activities.
Yeah, which is hilarious because I feel like you wouldn't, like when I house sat for you 10 years ago, I always joke because like, you know, your husband's like very unstuck. And at the time you guys weren't married, but like, I was always like, when we lived in your house, we were just like, where is this stuff? Like, where's the salt? Like the salt's supposed to be next to like this other guy that I was staying with in her house. We were both just like, where is everything? Like, cause it was all just not in the place you would expect it to be. Cause it
I'm
was
not a place sorter.
Cause you're not.
And I'm not a thing sorter. So like place and things just don't register.
Yeah. So a good profession, I would say, for a place sorter would be, I work with someone who is an art designer. They're an art director. And they are a place sorter, and they are so fantastic.
Auditors are great place sorters. They're looking for the numbers to be in the right place.
Yeah.
My friend who's the place sorter is an editor.
Yeah. So typesetters, people who are all about layout design, like they are so good if they're place sorters.
Right.
Because
travel recommendations.
they're going to be able to give you the interface and the UX that you want. Like, yeah, it's great.
So, we have now information sorters. They're good because they know everything about anything. You want them on your trivia team. They're going to know the facts about everything. They're great resources for information. So there's that. But now the weakness of the information sorters is they need to learn to read the room. They will like just inundate you with information. And unless you're another information sorter, it's like just verbal diarrhea. You're like, I don't need to know 200 things. I just need to know the bare bones that are going to affect my activities or my place or my people, right? So information sorters really need to learn to, they're great at any kind of field that requires intellect, but they really need to read the room and kind of like swallow their tongue.
Oh yeah. And that's really hard. I'm an activity / information sorter. For years, we thought I was an information sorter, but my information is about activity. And I have a tendency to talk a lot about something that I'm very interested in without recognizing that
the details might not be necessary.
Exactly. Information sorters though are very good at research.
Yeah.
Very good at research.
Oh yeah. I have a neighbor who is information sorter. If I want a good recipe, good anything, like good recommendation for anything, Netflix, food, whatever, boom, I ask her. She knows everything. She researches everything before.
They'll usually have a lot of quality in their life. Like they'll have a lot of quality items and things like that because they've done the research that says that they need to do whatever it is. And they definitely can free flow and kind of usually if they're gregarious sorts of people, then they'll just talk to you about anything.
Right. So I'm an activity sorter, and I believe I might have gotten this way from observing my father, who is the king of activity sorters. And me and my siblings joke that if we were to stick like a GPS tracker on my father and just like charted his activity for the day, it would be busier than a bumblebee. Like, he wakes up at 4 a.m. every morning, and by 8 or 9 o'clock, he has cleaned the house, done yard work, gone on a 6-mile walk, gone to Starbucks, got his coffee. Like, the man is everywhere. Like, he just doesn't stop moving. And I've learned it from him. My dad is probably, we'd say, very stuck in activities. Like, I can even ask my father, "Hey, Dad, how are you?" Which is the response I'm looking for, is an emotional answer. And his answer is, "I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm going here, I'm going there." Like, he doesn't even have emotions like in his vocabulary. It's all about the doing. And he's adorable. Gets a lot of shit done.
Yeah.
Activity sorters get shit done, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So the pros of an activity sorter is they get a lot done. Like, they're the people who fit 5 lives into one lifetime. Like, they get stuff done. But their weakness is they can sometimes forget about people, place, etc. And, like, for example, treat people like activities, or like be home and not enjoy being home, and instead look for like things to clean, things to organize, do, instead of just like sitting and enjoying and resting.
Yeah. I can have an example of my activity that's gone a bit stuck, is that I used to just like accumulate hobbies to do just in case I wanted to do them. If you know what I mean? Like, it was like, I wouldn't actually end up doing them because some of the times I would just like go on to the next thing. But like, I was like almost like a stone skipping activity. Like, I would just always skip over the surface and just be like, I'm going to start sewing. And then I would get everything for sewing, and then I would sew a couple of things, and then I'd go on to the next thing. And it was just like, that there's other things influencing that. But, you know, I always wanted something to do. Like, my closet was just full of things to do.
Right. Yeah. If I pick a vacation, like, am I going to be tanning on the beach all day? No. I'm going to want the location that I can go on a bike ride and go on a hike and go da. So the pros of a thing sorter are they're really good at things. They're good at manufacturing things. They're good at working with inventions. They're good at assessing and evaluating the quality of things. They're good at buying gifts. They're good at accessorizing. They're good at, say, interior design. They're good at things. One of the downsides of a thing sorter is that they treat everything like a thing, so it becomes kind of chunky. When you're in the presence of a really deep self sorter, they treat you like the help. They treat you like you don't really exist. Other people are kind of like stepping stones in their world to move from one place to another. So if thing sorters need to watch out that they don't treat people like things. Now I'm going to talk about how knowing these patterns obviously will help you understand yourself and try to get less stuck. But I'm also going to talk now about how you can use these knowledge of these patterns to help you professionally and romantically. So I'm in healthcare, so I'm going to discuss how I use the knowledge of these patterns to get the outcomes that I want with my patients. And I'm also going to talk about how knowing this could help you in interpersonal relationships. And Christina, please feel free to chime in with your own experiences.
Yeah.
So the first one I'm going to talk about is the place sorters. So I think it's really important to know what the patterns of the people you're working with or living with, because when you understand their patterns, you know where to meet them. So one of the first things I do when I do an evaluation on a patient is try to assess what is their primary sorting style. Yeah. And I just ask questions. Tell me about your day. Tell me why you're here. Tell me what your goals are. And you can usually just with that conversation identify like what their primary people, place, thing, information, activity is. So with my place sorter patients, it's very important that I honor time commitments. If I'm ever running late to an appointment, as I do home visits, I got to make sure I let them know. The where we do the exercises really matter. Like, it's really important. I explain clearly like the placement of where the foot goes and where the legs goes and where we're going to do it. Like, when you're home, you need to come do the exercises. Like the kitchen sink ones are here. The ones in the bed are here. The ones in the chair are here. And just like be really consistent and respectful that where we're doing the activity, like where we're doing their exercises really matters. Yeah. And again, honoring time, honoring weather, and things like that.
Yeah. So when it comes to your kids, so my daughter was doing a massive pattern of place sorting as a kid. I think that she's come out of that more. but she would have a problem eating anywhere other than a place that she was okay. So if we sat her down in a place that she wasn't okay with, she wouldn't eat. And we didn't realize what was going on at first. And then we're like, oh, I'm just going to ask, and what seat are you going to eat? And then she'd be like, I'm going to eat in this seat. And then she would eat in that. And then we'd sit her in that seat and she'd eat there. And it has a lot, there's probably a human design explanation for it too, which I've recently found out. But I think that when you have a kid and that kid seems to be stuck in place and like, I have to do things in a certain order and I have to kind of like do all this kind of stuff, it's really good to give them the freedom and autonomy to be able to choose what is going to be best for them. And then you can run other patterns with them, like your husband does. Like you can run other patterns to try and kind of help them become more unstuck in that pattern. But at the same time, like, don't try and control their place.
And to piggyback that, my son was running a lot of place sorting. I think it's a developmental thing too. Like he was at the age, he was very place sorter.
Yeah.
And he would like get up while he was eating and we'd be like instead of saying sit down, which is an action, I'd be like, this is your chair. This is where we eat. We sit in this chair when we're eating and make it about the place. And so he never gets out of his chair when he eats, which is great. Now my daughter, on the other hand, does because she's not a place sorter and I've not figured out a way to communicate that. If you're married to or living with someone who is a place sorter, it's important that you recognize they need boundaries. Like don't touch their stuff. Don't invade their privacy. Respect their space. Respect that they might need to check the Weather Channel 10 times a day. They might be really rigid about where and when things are occurring and try to understand that that's just the pattern they're running. They don't mean to be a pill.
Or that they really want to show up 15 minutes early. The woman who was my landlord for a while, and I lived on the same property as her, she was a place sorter, and it was remarkable. Like it was a cause of somewhat of conflict at one point, but like it was remarkable because if we went up to the shed that she like literally only went in once a month and we took an axe that she hadn't used for 5 years, that day she would want to use an axe. It was like she had such an awareness of her space because she was like a psychic intuitive, right? Like she had such an awareness of her place that like if you moved anything in her place, even if it was like 500 meters away from her house, she would know and have an interest in actually going to find that tool that day.
My sister's a place sorter. And as a child, you like to snoop in your siblings' stuff. Like you could not move an eraser an inch on a messy desk. She would know you had done it.
Yeah.
It's place sorter. So, okay, let's talk about people sorters. So if I have a patient who's a people sorter, one of the ways I can motivate them to get their exercises done is to talk about the people. Like, you want to get back to playing with your grandkids or visiting your grandkids? Like, what kind of things do you want to do with your grandkids? Of course, I come from an activity frame, but I try to incorporate the people in their lives into their goal making. Mm-hmm. And I think that really helps remind them, like, we're getting stronger so you can go get your manicures with your granddaughter again or whatever. Like, I kind of try to bring the people back into the session, like, as a motivator. And then if you're married to a people sorter, I guess I've never had a romantic relationship with a people sorter. My guess would be like, maybe you need to watch your jealousy, because I'm thinking maybe people sorters talk about a lot of people and are interested in a lot of people and you might get jealous. Like, I don't really know how that would show up romantically.
I think when it comes to romantically, I don't think I've been in a romantic relationship, but I have been in a close place with a people sorter. And I think that when it comes to that, it's all about like recognizing that they may want to talk with someone, or it just feeds their interest. It's like reading a book. It's like but they're going to do it with people instead. And so as you are together, they may be the dominant person in a conversation. If you meet a new person, it probably helps a lot to get them to meet other new people, like to really encourage them to not necessarily just have the same friends all the time. I mean, they can keep the same friends, but like to expand their exposure to other people. Mm-hmm.
Be respectful of their need for others, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you have a patient who's an information sorter, we're talking about information sorters, they love information. So for these people, I will go into great length, like what muscle they're exercising, why this exercise strengthens this muscle, I pull out my my diagrams. I pulled out my models. Like I give them in-depth explanations of their exercises and why they need to do them. And that will totally make improved compliance. I don't need to bring people in, place, or activity into the conversation. I focus on information and they love it. And I get way better compliance when I really give them detailed explanations. It's a great time saver for me because a lot of times I don't need to give great explanations to people. They don't need it. But the information sorters, trust me, they need it.
Yeah, and it's my chiropractor is very good at inadvertently. I don't even know if she knows that she's doing this, but like because I'm a partial information sorter, she will tell me what points. So she uses kinesiology, so she'll tell me what points and what they mean. Because if I can see that she is addressing all the different parts of the body, because informationally, if she's telling me how it's working, I am going to be more compliant with her suggestions because I understand what it is and I believe it. Because I'm like, you've given me the information, I need to believe this. If you'd just been like, take these 5 pills and see you in the morning, I'm going to be like, bullshit, where'd you get that information?
Okay, and me as an activity sorter, I'll be like, oh, cool, let me take the 5 pills. Let me see what happens. And then I'll know if this works or not. You know, I need to like trial by error.
Yeah, whereas I'm like, give me the information and let me know that you actually came to this in a good and consistent way that I've been able to see, and I'm cool.
All right, so if you're married or in a close relationship with an information sorter, some things to be flexible about is their long-winded need to do research and inform you about things that probably are non-functional.
Yeah, I think it's also living with an information sorter. Analysis paralysis is a tendency in the sense of like sometimes you may need to encourage them to make a decision.
Yeah, they can get stuck because they have so much information. They just don't make decisions. You know, they just know too much.
Oh, yeah. Like
personally, knowing my personality, I probably could not survive with an information sorter because I'm like, let's just do it. Let's deal with the consequences after. Let's not research everything.
I think that's why I'm incredibly lucky that Luke and I are both partial, like that I'm a partial information sorter and activity sorter, and that he's information almost entire. He's information in place, because like what it does is that it makes it so that like for instance, Luke has been researching. Again, it's probably because he's a 5 in the Enneagram too, but like I think they lend information to each other. But he's been looking for a pair of headphones. He took 3 months to research a pair of headphones. This is literally a $30 purchase. He took 3 months to research the right headphones, and then he waited for Christmas for somebody to buy it for them, and he didn't. And then he still doesn't have the headphones. He's literally been having the same pair of Bluetooth headphones, which he doesn't want because he's researched all Bluetooth near your head
And an activity sorter would have bought them already, worn them, and decided do they return them or not. Like
exactly.
It's just like more function based.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're married to an information sorter or have a close information with them, be patient and try to encourage them to read the room and make decisions. Now, if I have a patient who's an activity sorter, that is like the best kind of patient for a physical therapist because they will just do everything because they love to do and go, and you give them a little routine and they're in it. Like that's super, super easy. And just reminding them like this is going to help you get back to jogging, or this is going to get you back to doing this, and this. They want the freedom of movement and activity. So that's very easy. And I've also noticed to be a lot more respectful of the activity sorters who have become recently disabled. Like if an activity sorter has a stroke or becomes an amputee, it's going to be a lot harder for them than say a place or information people sorter, because there's now their life, which is about activity, they're no longer able to do the things that they want to do. Like I have a patient right now who is an activity sorter, and she has lost the use of both arms due to different accidents. And it's like she is going crazy because she cannot do anything. So when I come and see her, there's a lot of tears and there's a lot of emotion that say someone else who had 2 broken arms might not experience, but she's an activity sorter. So her primary way of like making it through life has been derailed temporarily. But it's also really important. Like if you're working with an activity sorter and they have experienced disability recently, it's going to be a lot harder for them than other people.
Is there any way to divert them to like an activity that doesn't require movement? Like, is there any way to be like, hey, you should meditate, or you should read books, or you should do something like that?
It's funny you said that. I got her onto audiobooks, and I got her into some like meditation apps on her iPad. Like I'm trying to get her to do more internal thing. And I've also helped her see that she can hire someone, like she's financially well off, that she can hire someone to do a lot of the things she wants, and she can follow them around and tell them what to do, and then she gets to feel involved in the activity. So there's a ways around it. If you are romantically involved with an activity sorter, Lord,
let them
let them just do their thing.
Yeah,
No, I'm kidding.
Let them plan vacations.
Let them plan vacations. Try not to get frustrated when they are juggling like 10 different activities. I know, like, when I'm stressed, I'll actually bring on more activities into my to-do list versus less. And I think also, if you're living with an activity sorter, be mindful that they can get overwhelmed with the amount of activities that they put on their to-do list, and try to help out. Like the quintessential activity sorter's language of love is acts of service, because it's all in the doing. So if you see that your partner is an activity sorter, help them, in their tasks.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I do as an activity sorter and an information sorter, it's a really hard thing to be a mother. Like, I'm just going to be out there for me, because of the fact that if I could have a really long, like, information conversation with my kids who are 6 and 3, then that's why I'm like so looking forward to them growing up, because I'm just like, then we can have all these conversations and I can tell you about all my information. I'm so excited about that. And so what I have to do is I actually have been having, I love being a mother when I have an activity to do with the kids.
Oh, me too. I'm like, let's play hide and seek. Like, let's go on a hike. Like, that for me is so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I will go to like Target or Walmart or whatever and just be like, go and buy an activity, because I'm just like, I'm so excited about it. And it was like yesterday I went to one of those stores and I brought back and Lyra was just like, but there's so much stuff to do. She was just like completely overwhelmed by the number of things I had brought back to do, because I was just like, for me, spending unstructured time with my kids when I can't have deep intellectual conversations with them, or I don't have an activity for them, is really a struggle for me.
Right.
Because I feel worthless. Like, I feel like I'm not moving. I feel like it's just this waste and suck of time, because that's just not where I am. Like, I just need to be in one of those extremes. And so it's good for me to run other things, to just like recognize that people patterns are good for me, and that just spending time with a person is valuable in and of itself. You don't have to be doing anything or talking about anything.
Right. Okay, let's talk about the thing sorters. The last one real quick. So the thing sorters, let's say I have a patient who's a thing sorter. Everything is in just chunks, like this and that and this and that. And I'll be honest, I'm probably not the best at connecting with thing sorters, but what I've learned to do is really respect that they have their stuff and it's important to them. Like, they might have a collection. They might have a collection of things. It might be really important to them. Their stuff is important to them. Like, they have like 5 cameras, and I might be like, why are you buying 5 cameras? 1 camera is enough.
This is her husband.
And I have to remember, the importance of these 5 cameras is just as important to this person as being able to clean the house all day and cook all day, to me as an activity sorter. So you have to like understand that just because it doesn't seem functional and it seems, quote, materialistic, it's not. It's just their pattern, which is thing, just as my pattern is moving and activity.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give if I have a patient who's a thing sorter? Like, what should I be looking for? Because I don't think I have that one down.
I think I would give them, what are they called? In yoga, they have them to props.
Okay.
Give them props to work with. Like in yoga.
Like a gait belt or a strap or a yoga ball.
Exactly. So in yoga, if I had to, as a yoga teacher, if I had to give someone a routine with yoga, I would give them blocks, the stretchy band, like the straps. I would give them a yoga swing. I would give them something that they could,
like a tangible object
with which to work. Like, if they just have to like do stuff with their body, like their body is not considered a thing to them and it's not interesting. Whereas if they have to lift this ball up 10 times, then they're going to be much more likely to do that.
That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. And so thing sorters in general will also have a tendency, I think one of my relatives is a thing sorter, now that you're talking about it. And you could also correspond it with his language of love is gifts, but like, it's like, it feels as if to give love as well as a way to like, is to just like give
interact with
gifts.
the world,
like give gifts all the time. Like, oh, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you this. You know, like it's like this constant thing. Your husband does it too. He loves, like, to him,
giving someone something.
Giving someone one of his things is like such an act of love.
Right.
Right.
And me going on a walk with someone is mine. You know.
Yeah.
Just parallel it.
Yeah. Exactly.
In summary, we've got place, information, activity, thing, and people sorters. And knowing what the patterns are going to be really good in the way that you interact with others. Not to say you're going to manipulate them better or get better outcomes, but you're going to be able to connect with them more on their level and be a little more efficient in the way that you ask for or connect with them, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And if you yourself are aware of the patterns, you might become more flexible to know when is a good time to use them. So before we end the episode, let's just talk briefly about when are good times to run which patterns. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're with your children, you're getting your hair done, you're interacting with people at a party. That's a good time to become a people sorter.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Put the information down, put the activities aside, and really become interested in people as people.
Yep.
Yeah. As far as place goes, when's a good time to run place sorting?
When you're cleaning your house, when you're organizing your house, when you're buying a new house. I keep saying house. When you're making a schedule for the week.
Oh, yeah.
When you're making your schedule for your week.
Making your financial plans or auditing something.
Creating a budget.
Yeah. Get into your place sorting zone.
Yep.
Information sorters. Good time to be an information sorter is
when you're doing research.
Yeah, when you're researching or you're playing trivia. Activity sorters when you're doing things.
A lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Americans are very activity sorters, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, our culture is very activity based.
Yeah.
Thing sorter. Good time to be a thing sorter.
Good time to be a thing sorter would probably be, again, when you're organizing things, because I feel like thing and place are kind of very closely linked a lot of the times.
When you're buying a gift for someone.
When you're buying a gift for someone. That's what I was thinking. Thing that came to mind was Christmas.
Of course, you and I are filtering. This entire episode is being filtered through the lens of activity sorter. So
please bear that in mind.
So please bear that in mind that this entire episode has been orchestrated by 2 activity sorters.
Yeah, but we had to do something in order to be able to do it. No, the thing is that ultimately with NLP, I just kind of want to say this, just in closing, is that it may get some flack for being oh, I'm trying to control people, but it's not at all. It really is all about how can I connect to someone in the way that they're talking about.
How do I speak their language?
And
how do I be more flexible?
And yes, that's capable of influencing people. Absolutely. The whole point is not to influence people. The whole point is to make people feel heard.
Right. And really show up for them. So yeah, there we go. Let's go. Well, now Chris and I are going to go for a walk. So we'll talk to you later.
We are going to go for a walk indeed. All right, cool. Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Bye.
So now that you've heard everything, we encourage you to go back and listen to your recording and figure out what kind of sorter you are. You can do this kind of test anytime you want to find out people's primary interest and get to know them better.
Follow us on Instagram.
This.spiritual.fix. Be sure to like and subscribe on Apple or wherever you get your podcast too. It helps people find us. And remember,
humility, acceptance, gratitude, done.
Hi, Christina, co-host of This Spiritual Fix. Has listening to our podcast stirred up something for you with the primal wounds? The good news is you have access, and that is the first step to transforming these wounds. We created support packages to help you through this process, and they're available on our website, www.thisspiritualfix.com. These packages were designed by Anna and I, combining techniques and hacks from our own experience working through our own wounds. Each packet contains a workbook and 2 meditations, one about forgiving those who have wounded you, including yourself, and one about reprogramming old beliefs. You can buy an individual support package, or for those next level processors, all 5 packets: abandonment, injustice, rejection, betrayal, and humiliation. Available on our website and our shop.